My marriage fell apart because of infidelity. And now I'm in complete control of my ex-wife's life. The whole mess began around 9 years back. A buddy of mine, let's call him Tyler, pulled me aside one day and reluctantly told me he'd spotted Jessica, my wife at the time, sneaking into some hotel with another guy. Tyler's wife Emma had actually tried to convince him to keep quiet about it, insisting it wasn't their business, and got pretty upset when he told me anyway. But Tyler said he couldn't call himself my friend if he kept something that huge from me. I didn't confront Jessica immediately. Instead, I played it smart, hired a private investigator to follow her around, and gathered all the proof I needed to confirm she was having an affair. I collected everything from surveillance photos to social media evidence. Before I finally decided to approach her, I made sure I had an airtight case before saying a word. When I finally sat Jessica down and told her I knew about her cheating, she immediately denied everything. I pulled out screenshots of her conversations and text messages, but she kept insisting they weren't hers. I showed her piece after piece of evidence, yet she continued denying everything to the point of absurdity. All the while, she had the nerve to act offended, claiming I was a terrible husband for not trusting her. It wasn't until I showed her actual photographs of her entering and leaving that hotel, kissing this other man, that she finally broke down crying. Then came the flood of typical excuses cheaters use when they're caught red-handed. It's not what it looks like. I couldn't help myself. You don't get the whole situation. You drove me to this. I felt so alone. I never had feelings for him. You're barely ever home. I cut her off mid-sentence. I had zero interest in hearing her lies. She'd proven herself untrustworthy, unfaithful, and I couldn't believe another word from her mouth. I informed her that she needed to leave our house immediately, that I'd already consulted with an attorney and divorce proceedings were underway. Suddenly, her tearful begging transformed into rage. She claimed I had no right to make such decisions, demanded to know why I wasn't fighting to save our relationship, insisted she wouldn't accept a divorce, and threatened to take custody of our children and our home if I pursued it. The courts always favor mothers, she sneered. I simply told her she should start looking for somewhere else to live. The following weeks were absolutely brutal. Jessica became increasingly hostile about being caught in her affair, and furious that I wasn't attempting to salvage our marriage. Every day, I reminded her that she needed to move out, because our relationship was finished, which only made her behavior more erratic. But everything changed the afternoon I heard my daughter sobbing uncontrollably. When I rushed into her bedroom, I found little Sophia crumpled on the floor, hands covering half her face, while Jessica towered over her, screaming that she had no right to judge or question her, and that I'm your mother, I'm always right. Apparently, Sophia had overheard our arguments and innocently asked Jessica why I wanted a divorce. Jessica completely lost control and slapped our 9-year-old daughter across the face. Not just a tap, but with enough force to leave a mark. Something in me snapped. I must have looked absolutely terrifying because Jessica's tantrum immediately stopped, and real fear flashed across her face. Through gritted teeth, I told her she had until nightfall to get out of the house, and if she was still there when I returned, there would be serious consequences. I gathered Sophia and my son Ryan and drove them straight to my parents' place. On the way, I took Sophia to the emergency room and made sure to document her injuries with photographs. The next day, when I discovered Jessica hadn't left as instructed, I decided she needed to feel pain equivalent to what she'd inflicted on our daughter. My first move was forwarding all the evidence of her affair directly to the other man's wife. This guy, let's call him Patrick, had a lot at stake in his community, and my revelation cost him friendships, business connections, and sparked widespread gossip about their affair. That same afternoon, Jessica called me in hysterics, demanding to know how I could do such a thing, and claiming I had no right to expose them like that. I calmly informed her that this was merely the beginning, that I was completely done with her games, and that she needed to remove herself from my life immediately. or things would get much worse for her. One advantage of being married for years is learning all your partner's deepest secrets. And I used every single one to systematically dismantle her life. When the divorce finalized, I retained full custody of our kids and kept the house. After everything was legally settled, I made sure her entire family received copies of the evidence I'd collected. Jessica's family history made this revelation particularly devastating. She'd been raised by a single mom, Nancy, after her father abandoned them when he cheated with another woman. Infidelity was essentially the ultimate sin in their household. So discovering that Jessica had followed in her father's footsteps hit her family hard. Nancy was so disgusted that she kicked Jessica out of her house. And her brother Mark only let her crash at his place for about 2 weeks, before telling her to leave because he couldn't stand being around someone like her. Jessica tried running to Patrick for support, but his life was in even worse shambles than hers. So he discarded her without a second thought. With nowhere else to go, Jessica ended up renting a tiny apartment and had to start working full-time just to cover basic expenses. Her comfortable life unraveled quickly as former friends stopped returning her calls. Her family refused to see her, and even our children wanted nothing to do with her. And that was just the fallout during the first couple years after everything exploded. She attempted to date again, but only seemed to attract guys who used her and disappeared, or flat out took advantage of her vulnerability. From what I heard through mutual connections, she gradually sank into a serious depression. By the 3rd year post-divorce, Jessica thought she'd hit rock bottom, only to discover she'd surrounded herself with incredibly toxic people, who, once they learned about her past, spread vicious rumors about her, humiliated her publicly, and manipulated her at every turn. She literally had nothing left, no support system, no real friends, no financial security. 5 years after her affair destroyed our family, Jessica showed up at my door, practically on her knees begging for forgiveness. She sobbed about how deeply sorry she was, how much she regretted her choices, and admitted she'd lost everything: family, friends, self-respect, everything. She confessed she couldn't remember feeling genuinely happy since our divorce, and described how desperately she missed me, our family life, and our marriage. She kept repeating how content she'd been with me and the kids, promising she'd do absolutely anything to fix what she called the worst mistake of my life. She swore she'd follow any rules I set, completely submit to my decisions. She just wanted another chance at being part of our family. I still harbored significant resentment, so I asked how I could possibly trust her claims of sincerity. Jessica admitted she had nothing tangible to offer except her loyalty, her heart, and her body. I took her upstairs and we had sex. Not once did she hesitate or object. In fact, her expression showed genuine happiness. And afterwards she broke down crying from relief, promising repeatedly she would do anything for me and dedicate herself to being the perfect partner. Over the next several days, I established clear boundaries and had Jessica sign an actual written contract outlining my conditions. She agreed to every single term without hesitation. It became obvious she was dead serious about doing whatever it took to get back into my life. To anyone looking from the outside, we appear to be a couple who somehow found their way back together after overcoming major relationship hurdles. People see us as this heartwarming reconciliation story. Jessica has even gradually rebuilt some semblance of a relationship with Ryan and Sophia. But the reality behind closed doors is dramatically different. She's essentially become completely dependent on me in every way. We attend social gatherings, go out for nice dinners, watch movies together, take family vacations. On the surface, Jessica has regained the comfortable lifestyle she enjoyed before everything fell apart. But beneath that appearance, she owns absolutely nothing. And I make certain she never forgets that fact. Not a single possession or account is in her name. She has no independent income or savings, since she agreed to quit working and focus exclusively on managing our home and caring for the kids. Her smartphone doesn't have any password protection, and I maintain full access to all her social media accounts at any time. She's required to share her exact location and activities whenever I ask. No questions permitted. She gets no say in major household decisions, and isn't allowed to complain about anything. And surprisingly, she accepts these restrictions completely, because she understands she has no alternatives left. Sometimes Jessica asks if we might get remarried someday. She desperately wants to officially be my wife again. But per our signed agreement, we won't even consider that possibility until Ryan turns 25. Whenever she timidly questions whether all these strict rules are still necessary, I always respond with the same four words: yes, because I don't trust you. That simple phrase is enough to immediately shut down any further discussion. I've made absolutely certain she understands that despite living together, and my giving her this opportunity, we aren't truly a couple. I remain technically single, and I've made it clear I could start dating anyone else whenever I choose. I've even brought other women home on a few occasions just to test her boundaries. Jessica has no option but to remain silent and accept the situation. Yet strangely, whenever I touch her or kiss her, she completely surrenders herself to me, clearly desperate for any sign of affection or indication that I might still care for her. I realize I'm not exactly a good person. I'm fully aware of that fact because I don't feel any remorse for what I've done. We've been living this way for almost 4 years now. What started as revenge should have ended long ago. But I've grown to enjoy having this level of control over her. And the strangest part is that Jessica seems genuinely content living under these conditions. I can't bring myself to hate her anymore. But I don't love her either, and I'm not sure if I ever will again. Sophia is 18 now and Ryan's 15. Which means I've got another 10 years to figure out if I can learn to love Jessica again before potentially remarrying her. But if after all this time I discover that I simply can't, I might just send her away for good, tell everyone it just didn't work out, and continue my life on my own, while she tries to piece together whatever future she can manage. Until then, I'll enjoy watching her work tirelessly to be the perfect wife and mother she still desperately wants to be.